Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Reblogatog. We don't have anything original, so we're just going to redo what somebody else has done. This is episode 10.
10.
Thanks for joining us.
Two hands full.
Whoever our dedicated listener is out there, thank you very much. So anyway, we regurgitate what Mark Rosewater puts on his Blogatog on Tumblr, which I guess is another social media. We were naming them off a while ago.
That's true, yeah.
Although it's in the
Death
lower
throes?
echelons or something, you know? I don't know, but it's what he's been using for years to do stuff with. So he answers questions on there, interacts with us lowly buyers of packs.
Buyers of packs.
The people who pay his salary, like taxpayers, you know. It's like he's the government and we're the taxpayers.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah. Maro for president.
Maro for president.
If we could get people as level-headed as him in our government, we could probably do things.
Probably.
Probably could. So anyway, here we are. I think we're on our first double-digit episode. Can't believe we're already up to 10.
10, yeah.
10, yeah. So anyway, we're going to get rolling. Hope everybody's doing all right.
Starting back on May 7th.
Yep. Why is Counterspell too powerful? If Essence Scatter and Negate are acceptable and barely main deckable, as long as the other two mana counterspells are not too aggressive, Counterspell should be fine and not create the world-ending dreaded draw-go counter-go. So that's the question? / comment. Straight up hard countering anything, is too good for 2 mana. In fact, in previous answers, basically they've arrived in R&D at 2.5 mana is the right amount of mana for a counterspell. And you can't charge 2.5 mana. So they do 3 mana spells generally with a little tiny upside. I mean, you've got your baseline cancel.
Right.
But after that, if you'll notice, most of the 3 mana counterspells will be 2 blue, 1, and Scry or Exile, something. You get a little something. Whatever the new mechanic is in the set or something, they'll piggyback it. Something of that nature. To follow up with that, don't you think that Counterspell is kind of weak compared to monsters like Teferi, Veil, Once, Oko, and Fires? No. For 2 mana, it counters any one of them. Counterspell is a lot stronger than some seem to think it is. If you haven't played with Counterspell, I'm here to tell you it is.
It is very strong.
It's super strong. I mean, if they go... Especially if they go first, 2 islands will just terrify you.
Yeah.
You will have the deer in the headlights look for most of the game if they hold up 2 blue. It's just terrifying. It's terrifying. It is too good.
I still don't know if I agree that it's too good.
It's too good for standard.
We've pushed standard power level to a place where I think we're getting more acceptable for Counterspell to be.
I don't think we're in that world. No, I don't think so.
They considered it for Dominaria, and that was before they started pushing power level.
Anyway, to continue, I'm curious about how long before release a set is entirely finished. Zendikar Rising was announced in September 2019 for release in Q4 2020. So there's at least a year between announcement and release. Would it have been a finished card file by then, or could changes still have been made? And this is something that bounces around a little bit, but pencils are down about 9 months before release. I believe he's been quoted as saying maybe as little as 6 months out they can tweak certain things.
Okay.
But what it really means is generally they could change a card, but it'd have to start with the same letter, it'd have to fit on the sheet, the same place,
right?
Those kinds of things. But yeah, about 9 months out, they're done with it. So yeah, that's been good to go since a while, since the first of the year, anyway. Yeah. With Lorwyn not likely to return, will we ever have sets without humans again? This is a frequent ask, believe it or not, but not as frequent as what he's going to tell you. It's possible, but not highly probable. Humans, surprisingly, like humans. There are a few outliers out there that don't want any humans in a set, but almost everybody else does. So they are a minority. But never say never.
Right.
We have gotten Creature Matter sets. We've gotten Graveyard Matter sets. We've gotten Artifacts Matter. I'm going to speed this up.
Yeah.
Mana matters, creature type matters, land matters, legendary matters, multicolor matters, monocolor matters, planeswalker matter. Is there a chance that we will ever get a instant and sorceries matter set? I ask because my favorite playstyle is spell slinging, and there isn't much to support that outside of Storm, but yeah. It's theoretically possible, but would require significant structure to support it. And I'm gonna piggyback on one that I wasn't going to at first. From over here that will help you figure that out. Let's see where it's at. I didn't tie them together, but they actually fit together pretty nicely. I've just got to find where it's at.
I would like to see something like that.
I was rereading your Nuts and Bolts article on Design Skellen, and one thing jumped out that was a breakdown for creature counts. In the past 10 years, it seems like blue and red have had more emphasis on creatures at common. Is it accurate to say their percentages have increased over time, or do they still get fewer creatures relative to other colors at common? The numbers have changed. Here are our current defaults for creature percentages. So, creature percentages, white gets 62%, green gets 59%, black 56%, red 53%, and blue 50%. So, in order to make limited work, which is creature-based, there has to be a high creature count.
Right.
So, one of the problems with making this instant and sorcery thing is that you got to have creatures to advance gameplay.
Right.
It's not just about countering your burn spell and, I didn't have a counter for that burn spell, and just playing spells.
They do a lot of instant and sorcery sub-themes, like, pretty frequently. Not necessarily every set, but every couple sets they're doing.
The themes are in there. Yeah, that's a common theme for colors. But one of the reasons that it would be hard to do is to build a whole set around that mechanic.
Right.
You got to lower your creature counts. Then you still have to have a way for limited play to progress.
Right. For things to get punched through.
Yeah, that's the reason. That's why I wanted to tie those two together. Hope I remember I did that when we get over there.
We'll figure it out.
So, but anyway, I just realized that I had left that there so that we could talk about it. What's more likely, a new rarity or a new card type? Neither is super likely, but if he has to pick one, he'd say a new card type.
Good answers.
That is the PC answer. That is the answer we want. We don't need another rarity since we pseudo have them now with collector boosters.
Oh yeah.
So a new card type is the answer.
Right, and like I said, I'm glad to hear him say neither is super likely.
Yeah. So moving on, we're going to get to one here. We got a few on a subject, so bear with.
We talked about this a little bit in the last couple of weeks. There's been some questions kind of
so
along this line.
And this is in response to him saying it's tricky to do multicolored, mismatched colored pairs if you're not doing all 10. Hi, Mark. Are you saying that designing a set focused on all 5 ally or enemy combinations, like in Innistrad, Dragons of Tarkir, is easier to do than other color balance combination, like in Ravnica? Isn't designing a set for the classic white-blue, blue-black, black-red, red-green, green-white the same as if the factions were... And he actually puts most of the same ones here.
Yeah.
For instance, he says, we could design it easily enough. The issue is one of aesthetics. Would the audience accept it? Would it imply something else is coming? Ally and enemy pairings are things that feel complete unto themselves. A mix and match of ally and enemy pairs wouldn't have that quality. Ixalan was an experiment pushing into this space, and the player reaction to that structure was not great.
That's true. They mixed and matched things a little bit.
So, following along with this similar theme, I'm rereading your old State of Design articles for fun. Wow, for fun. Okay, and I came across this. I don't think we can do Ravnica Block better than we did Ravnica Block. Since then, you've done Return to Ravnica and the latest one, Guilds of Ravnica, Ravnica Allegiance block, if you'll allow for the purpose of discussion. Do you think any one of the 3 was better than the other 2? Which one and why, or why not? Might surprise you what he says. I think all 3 Ravnica blocks were mostly the same structurally. Which is true. We got the guilds.
We got the guilds.
And the guilds do things.
So
structurally, Very similar.
Their mechanics were similar throughout.
Guild gates, we got the Shocklands. They do similar things. We know what it does. We know who makes tokens. We know who we know who wants. Yeah. From the other question, are color pairs missing anything of their base colors philosophically? Not all color pairings access the combination of their colors' philosophies the same. If we make a new blue-red faction, it's not necessarily going to be, is it? So there's been some questions, and I didn't get all of them, but there's been a lot of questions talking about that kind of thing. So they're not all going to be, is it? And then the last one I have is, hi, Mark, what is more likely to happen? New guilds showing up on Ravnica, or a second plane focused on two-color guilds? He said neither is likely. We will make other worlds with two-color factions. We did once already with Dragons of Tarkir.
Right.
So, I mean, the guilds are pretty much embedded in Ravnica. And I think that's going to be, I don't know, do we call it a challenge if we go back for a fourth time? Because we will go back.
We will. It's the most popular plane to Magic players. Every time. I don't know. I think we'll see something different. It sounds like the way he's talking, they do plan on doing a two color factions that aren't the guilds, but it will be very weird. Well, I mean, it's just like they
can do them because blue-red doesn't have to be is it?
Right. Well, we've already seen that similarly right now with Ikoria. We have 3-color factions. We have the wedges, right?
Wedges. Mm-hmm.
But they're not the same wedges we got before. It's not Abzan, it's something,
Well, it's not just about the name, it's about the feel, it's about the flavor.
Right.
We're talking about the flavor, really, so I need to play with it before I can really catch flavor out of it, to be honest with you. But anyway, I thought that was interesting, the discussion about the two colors and the factions and so forth. Okay, here's another big one, bigger than that. There got to be a pretty huge discussion, and I probably missed a few.
Yeah, there's several, though.
Talking about testing for older formats. Are you looking at automation? I've got to think you've got Magic playing bots. You let the bots play tens of millions of games with some new cards, look at the aggregate results. Human testers can then playtest decks that had a win % over whatever threshold you choose and see if it's an actual problem. You'll never have enough people to match the player base, so I think automated testing has to be a big part of the answer. Maro sets him straight by going, we are far away from automated playtests.
Yeah, I can just not...
Far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why this person would think that that's a thing, but anyway. We don't have the resources to test older formats. What would you all suggest to fix the issue? That's a question that he asked in one of his responses. Hire teams to test these older formats. You should have teams for each format, closely communicating with each other to have one another test different concepts together. Let me know and I'll send you a resume. Maro's answer, we don't have resources. What should we do? Your response, get the resources. If we could just get the resources, I wouldn't say we don't have the resources.
Right.
So that's not the answer to just get the resources.
Right. You can't just keep getting more and more play testers.
Just get resources. All right. All this year we've been hearing about how Magic keeps expanding its player base. All these years. Every set needs more prints than the previous.
Right.
More printings, I think they mean. And you put more varied products than ever before. Now we hear that there aren't enough resources to strengthen R&D when it's obvious it's sorely needed. Either this grandiose tale of growth and prosperity are fabrications, or they are but true, but games' balance and health are deemed unimportant and not worth extra funding. You can't have it both ways. So which is it? All right, again, the patience of Maro wins out. There are 3 things I should address here. 1, R&D has hired a lot of people over the last few years. R&D is the largest it's ever been.
Yeah, they expanded largely.
2, there's a false assumption that playtesting is directly scalable, that having twice as many people means you get twice as much work done.
I can imagine that's not true.
Playtesting isn't a solo endeavor. The group works in conjunction to understand the impact the cards might have on the formats they are monitoring. The larger the group, the more complex the system needed for them to work seamlessly together. Not all formats require the same resources. The bigger the card pool, the more complex the job. Understanding, I'm on 3 if I didn't say that. Understanding how new cards interact with 2,000-ish cards is a complicated undertaking.
It is.
That's standard. Understanding how they interact with 20,000 cards is of a completely different scale of magnitude. And we're going to continue here and talk about that scale of magnitude.
Yeah.
In some of these responses. So I understand it's virtually impossible to fully playtest new cards to a future league for Eternal formats. I also understand that bans can effectively resolve any issues caused by unexpected problem cards. I don't understand why it takes so long for bans to roll out to Eternal formats. Oko took 3 months to ban in Modern. If you're explicitly relying on solely bans to balance Eternal formats, then I feel the DCI should be vigilant, responsive, and decisive with bans for Eternal formats.
That's
And Maro says you want to give everyone the time to try out the new things and see if the environment can adapt. And that's the thing they do time after time. Sometimes the format corrects itself because people go out looking for answers and they go, oh, look, out of these 20,000 cards, because it's usually the older formats that are the problem.
Right.
Oko was an exception. But out of these 2,000 or 20,000 cards, there is an answer. Or multiple answers. We just have to look for them.
Yeah, Oko wasn't a problem. As the vintage player said, he was just right for vintage.
All right, and then 2 things to talk about the scope and the magnitude. Not all formats require the same resources. The bigger the card pool, the more complex the job. Understanding how new cards interact with 2,000-ish cards is a complicated undertaking. Understanding how they interact with 20,000 cards is a completely different scale of magnitude. What's the jump like? Limited to standard to 20,000 plus. It's not 10 times. Is it 100 times? 1,000 times?
10 to the 10th power times?
Yeah, it's numerous magnitudes higher, is what Maro says. And then the last one on the subject. Somebody else responding. What's the jump like? Limited to standard to 20,000 plus? It's not 10 times. It is 100 times, 1,000, blah, blah. The first level of magnitude, expulsion, is the simple interaction between 2 cards.
Yep.
So if you have 100 cards, there are 100 to the second, is that what that is? Second power equal 10,000 interactions. If you double that to 200 cards, there are 200 to second power equal 40,000 interactions, a 4-fold increase. But many Magic interactions are between 3 or more cards, which leads to a combinatorial explosion. It gets kind of crazy when you get to larger formats.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you that if you haven't seen locally, where I posted Kyle Hill, who used to do Because Science, he had done an episode with the guys from the Command Zone about the Turing machine. So if you're a real nerd geek, you're gonna get this right away. But Magic is the first game ever to be proven that it can.
It's Turing complete.
It's Turing complete. You can build a computer that will compute something by just using Magic cards.
Yep.
So not only did they do this in a short form on the episode of the Command Zone, but in his most recent video, he goes into it deeper and lays out all the complexities of what it would really take to just add 2 plus 3 together. I watched this today. Basically, I'll make the math simple for you. There are millions of interactions and thousands of tokens created, and thousands of counters put on those tokens, requiring a table that, if I remember right, was about 2,700 kilometers long. That's the table you're playing on, because that's how long the line of tokens is.
Right.
And then, to complete the game, to add 2 plus 3, didn't say it'd be quick, 8.4 trillion years. So, it's doable. No other game has been shown that they can do it, except Magic the Gathering, but it can be done in 8.4 trillion years, which is a mighty long time.
A mighty long time, yes.
So there are complex interactions in Magic. If it can simulate a computer, it's complex. Trust me. Moving on, could we ever get a black removal spell that's strictly better than Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile? Before we continue, What would it? So it'd have to be like 1 black mana, exile any creature, and you don't get nothing. Is that strictly better?
Pay to life.
Anyway,
drawback,
anyway, we don't tend to make cards of that power level in current sets. Well, that's good. I mean, power creep gets you there eventually, and that's just way too far, right?
How about we make it like reverse sword? So instead of the creature's controller gaining life, you lose that much life, and it's 1 black.
We might already have that card.
Well, see?
We might already have that card. We've got Reanimate that brings it out of the graveyard by paying life equal to its casting cost.
All right.
We're trying to remember if there's one that destroys by paying life. Probably not for 1 mana instant, but there's a lot of cards in Magic's history. Let's see. We've done...
Yeah. We're to the
so
green.
We're to the green. All right. So what's the mechanic you most thought was going to be loved that ended up performing poorly in market research? I was surprised how much Megamorph was hated. It's a fine tweak on Morph that plays well. This got us into a really big discussion on Morph and Megamorph and Manifest.
Well, just the name Megamorph. It's just... Go on.
So somebody quotes that and says, I think this happened because of the expectation that how much different Manifest is from Morph created on the Morph variant for the last set of the block. So we had Morph, then we had Manifest, and then we got Megamorph. He goes, I understand why it wasn't liked. I did not expect it to be the lowest ranked mechanic of all time.
Really? Wow.
All time, it's the lowest ranked mechanic. Somebody responds to that and says, maybe Companion has the potential to solve one problem at least. This might be the only time we mention it this week. I don't know.
Hey, that'd be nice.
Companion is polarizing, but a segment of the audience adores it. To make the bottom, you have to be universally hated. So, Companion... Not even close. Bands with other legends is somehow more popular than Megamorph? Really? It predates market research.
It's a dinosaur of a mechanic. So
yeah, predates research. I thought Smorph, which is a thing that he had talked about them doing at one point, was to be costed at 4 for a 2/2 with a +1/+1 counter. In your last answer, you said it was 3 colorless for effectively the 3/3. And it was going to be 4 mana instead of 3 to get a 3/3. That was another thing they considered doing.
Right.
So regarding Megamorph, I disliked it because it felt so flat. Here's a brand new mechanic to play in the neat Morph Manifest format, and it turns out it's just Morph plus a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
It felt uninspired, at least with other mechanics that ended up poor, sweep, and jest. You could tell a lot of thought and effort went into making them, and they just didn't work out. Megamorph just felt like R&D forgot to do their homework and scraped something together right before class to get partial credit. Wow. Why don't you tell us what you're really talking about there, man? Block Planning had a variant that didn't work out. Smorph got shot down because it didn't play well with normal Morph. We didn't find a great answer, but not because we didn't look. So they tried Smorph. It didn't work out. We're still going.
Still going on Morph.
This was a big discussion. You previously mentioned having explored Auramorph as a possibility for Dragons of Tarkir.
Interesting.
But felt it played poorly in the same environment as Morph. Do I block the Morph in case it's a big creature, or the non-Morph in case it gets a surprise aura? But could it ever see the light of day in its own without regular Morphs in the same standard? It's not off the table, but I'm not sure it passes the bar of being interesting enough to replace Morph with it.
Fair.
And then our last Morph one. Interestingly, the mistake might have been using Manifest. We had so much going on in Dragons of Tarkir that there wasn't space to do anything too crazy. I think we created an expectation we couldn't meet, so I guess the error was the act that created the expectation. What exactly was the expectation that Manifest created? Just a mechanic more interesting than Megamorph?
Yeah.
It implied that the third set would have a Morph variant as wild as Manifest. That's why I believe Megamorph was so disliked. So, I think we got to the answer right there at the end. I think that's a good place to end it. because Manifest was so different.
Yeah,
and then Megamorph was just like, it's just more fun, not even good steroids.
Yeah,
you know?
it's just Morph with a +1/+1 counter, and Megamorph was the best name you had for it. That's what always kind of hits me, just like...
I'm glad they didn't do Smorph, because I think we have an expectation at this point that 3 mana for face down is kind of standard.
Right.
Because of all the past kinds of things we've done.
All right.
So I think that's the expectation.
I think it is, and like I said, it's Manifest is just so much cooler too. To give us Manifest and then go right back to Megamorph the next set, it does fall flat.
Yeah. So if we'd have had Megamorph in the second set and then Manifest at the end, it probably would have been
better.
Been like, okay, people have been going, okay, so what in the third set we're going to get with 2+1/+1,
right?
Or whatever, So
yeah.
All right, so moving on. This is the one that I jumped to earlier, so passing over that.
Yeah.
We've done blue, we've done green. Okay.
There is more.
There's not much. I tried to be cautious with it because we've talked too damn much about it.
He's going to say the C word.
Yeah.
This is a...
No, I'm not going to talk about COVID. Has companion crossed infect levels of polarizing? He says it's too soon to tell, but it's going to be a contender.
That is probably, if you want to
That's polarizing.
That's polarizing.
People loved or hated Infect. Mm-hmm. There was no middle ground here. Either you were like all on board or you're like, whoa. Whoa. How do I can't get, whoa.
Yeah.
And everybody else is going, I only have to do 10 to you? That's awesome. Let's go. All right, so... Could a standard legal set conceivably use all repeated mechanics provided that there was enough design space in them to still create a novel and exciting play environment?
I think so.
Or is there enough expectation for a new mechanic each time that it would be a hard sell without one? Maro says a set doesn't have to have new mechanics, but some of the returns would probably have to be exciting or unexpected.
That's fair.
I think there's probably, and I don't know if he spoke to this before, if I'm just, making it up, on the fly, but I think there's a possibility we could get to a point where we could have just a set of remixed mechanics.
Right.
Mechanics that were never put together before in a set.
Yeah.
I mean, there's dozens of them now.
Oh.
So remix those and put things together that were never together before that creates a new and exciting play environment. I think that's totally doable.
I think with as many mechanics as we have, it's easily doable at this point.
And definitely, if we keep going and we don't have to do it for another 5 or 10 years, definitely there's just that many more. I will pass on that because we're doing Reblogatog.
All right.
I was going to get into something. We don't need to go there.
All right.
I don't need to go. Maybe we do that on Chatter.
All right.
If I don't forget about it.
We can chatter.
I've already forgot it.
Oh, well, maybe we won't.
Boom. Done. Somebody asked if you had to divvy up the 5 classical elements, fire, earth, water, air, ether, among the 5 colors, how would you do it? Mm-hmm. Now, this seemed pretty straightforward once I read the answer. White would be air, blue would be water, black would be ether, red would be fire, and green would be earth. That actually seems pretty straightforward once I look at it. I don't know if everybody looks at it that way, but it seemed pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
All right. As someone who's not a fan of Godzilla, though I like that they exist for those who do, so this is not a hater, are there plans to make a normal version of Zalortha?
I've been curious about this.
He says, we have the art, so I'm guessing there are plans.
All right.
So
good to know.
There are plans because they've got art for it. Because it was going to be the Buy-A-Box,
yeah,
right?
That's the Buy-A-Box. That's Godzilla King of Monsters' actual magic name.
Here's a nice little statistic for you. What's the median age of most Magic players? He says he hasn't seen it in a while, but his guess is mid to late 20s. And as a follow-up, somebody asked, has this always been the case, or has the age gone up as the game itself has gotten older? And he says it has gone up as the game has gotten older. I could see that because starting out, you probably got a lot of younger people, people with free time, and then they've played, much like me. I mean, I wasn't a super young man, but I was in my...
mid-20s.
Late 20s, I guess.
I was trying to be late 20s.
Yeah,
I was trying
late
to be,
20s. So, and I'm still playing into my 50s, so that's going to drag that medium age up. I got him playing,
right.
and he's in his mid-30s, so, there you go.
I'm past that median age now.
What's more likely, more odd-even cards or more coin flipping? He says coin flipping, I guess. I assume we'll make more of both, but more coin flipping than even odd.
Cool.
And
you haven't seen a coin flip in a while.
Were the even-odd mechanics poorly received, aside from the general companion controversy? Odd-even sounds like something more magic, or at least more easy to do than coin flipping. He says coin flipping has more design space.
Yeah.
More magic. Wow.
Magic.
Magic. Uh-oh, it's magic.
That's
All
right.
All righty, we're closing in on the end here, boys and girls, because we've had a lot. What percentage of cards that you create in Vision Design actually get printed as you originally made them? I thought this number was interesting. It varies set to set, but usually 10 to 20% of a printed set are based on initial Vision designs.
Wow.
Top-down sets are usually higher.
Wow.
He says based on initial Vision designs. Now keep in mind that they don't set
power, toughness, or casting cost, really. Well, I think they set
power, toughness. It's casting cost.
It's casting cost,
and then power, toughness get tweaked at the end because play design goes to make this
right.
Competitive or not competitive, or what we need for limited.
It needs
play
another
work.
point of toughness.
Yeah, or one less point of power or something. But still, I thought that was a tiny percentage of what I really expected.
Is.
Here's some birthday trivia. My favorite set is Kamigawa, and my favorite character is Toshiro Umezawa, and my favorite creature type is rat. But honestly, I know everything about these three subjects. Well, good for you. So the real birthday trivia one is, what is the best birthday present you ever got, Mark?
Huh.
This would almost make you just believe in something. For my 30th birthday, Laura, my then girlfriend, now wife, who he has 2 kids with, I believe, threw me a surprise party. It was a very nice party with catered food and a DJ.
Oh.
It was a wonderful party, but I didn't know how she was able to afford it. I later found out that she ate nothing but ramen noodles for 6 weeks to save up the money.
Oh.
That's the first time I realized how serious she was about our relationship. 7 months later, I proposed to her. And they've been married now for 20
years,
20 years, something like that. So, are you willing to do that kind of something for somebody you really care about? Because if not, maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't care about them as much as you think. That's big time. I thought that was pretty. Mark is always time sharing personal stories and whatnot. So I thought that was interesting. What sort of interactions are typically the most popular? Players like back and forth where both players have the advantage at some point. I think that's true.
That's true.
Whether you're a control player or an aggro player or whatever, I don't know. I don't think combo players like action back and forth. I don't think combo players do. I'm gonna say I have more in common with the control player as an aggro player than I do a combo. Combo player just wants to get his things and go.
That's fair.
Right? But even a control player, most of them don't want to just be so dominating that they don't really play any magic.
Right.
They want something. They want to have to counter something to kill something. They want to have to draw a card instead of just sit there and
stare at each other.
Yeah. So back and forth. BOP. We all know what that is. If you don't, you probably shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah.
In Alpha, Birds of Paradise was done from art. Was it not top down? So what they're really saying is it was what they call slush art.
Yeah. It was originally the art for Volcanic Island.
Tropical Island.
Is it Tropical Island? Because I thought it's Tropical Island. Well, it's one or the other, but I
think it's Tropical. I might be wrong on that. It
was
for a dual land.
It was for a dual land. It's for one of those two. I think you might be right, but I think that it's actually a volcano on the island. You can see.
Okay, so it might be.
But the bird was too prominent in the artwork for them to want to use it as a land card.
And Richard designed a card for it. In fact, I was listening to a podcast today with Richard Garfield on a not Drive to Work episode.
Right.
where he's talking about Alpha, and it was one of the, if not the last, one of the last cards designed for Alpha because it was made from the Slush art. And he says it just turned out to be an iconic card, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
You know? Even though it wasn't originally in the set kind of thing.
Yeah, and the artwork, it's iconic artwork. I mean, I'm glad they made a card for it. So,
I'm going to skip those for the moment. Fun rules time.
oh Lord.
Sometimes he gets rules questions, and this is a fun one. I have a Gem Razor mutated on top of a Gingerbrute.
Fun already, okay.
In response to an exile spell, I use Gingerbrute's ability of 2 tap, sacrifice this artifact. You gain 3 life. My friend argues that it no longer has this ability since it's not a food. They say that the ability is granted by the subtype food, like how the subtype forest adds the ability tap, add green. If Blood Moon removes forest, it removes tap, add green. Are they right about food, or can Gingerbrutezazer still sack itself? He tried to combine the names, and I was trying to pronounce it.
Yeah.
I almost hurt myself doing that.
I was trying to think of what the answer is.
The food subtype doesn't inherently have the sacrifice for life gain ability. We just lined up every food to be able to do that. So yes, you can still sacrifice the Gingerbrute for life.
Awesome.
So there you go. It's.
I was curious if it was an inherent ability or if they just put the text on. Yeah.
Yeah. Food doesn't have that ability inherently. And then a little preview. We've talked about it in past episodes, I think, or maybe it's before we went to our separate show. But can I get a maybe on Zendikar Rising having some treats for the Eldrazi fans?
The what? There's no. Are there fans?
I kind of like the Eldrazi. We've already said that Zendikar Rising is moving back to original Zendikar and away from the Eldrazi, who were defeated during our last visit to Zendikar. And our last one, hi Mark, with Zendikar returning to its roots, with notably less Eldrazi, will we at least see some aspect of Zendikar healing? Completely ignoring the fact that it was almost decimated seems like a wrong choice in flavor for the set.
They're not going to do that.
The fact that the Eldrazi impacted the world is still a core part of Zendikar, which is why I think we will get colorless when we go back.
I think we'll. I mean,
not a ton, but we're going to get some
right.
colors. We should. The land's still going to be decimated.
I think
there's still going to be waste there.
I think we should get a couple Eldrazi, possibly too. He hasn't flat out said we won't, but I think we'll see some kind of weird Eldrazi
hybrid thing?
Hybrid, outcast, refugees, leftover kind of something.
So we're going to bring hybrid colorless mana symbols to Zendikar?
That'd be really cool, actually.
So hybrid colorless green, you get a 1/1 squirrel.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Give me a squirrel in Zendikar's The Adventure World. Where else can you put squirrels? Put them on Zendikar. Green. We need green squirrels.
Yeah. Thank you for squirrels, but you gave us a white one.
Hey, we got one in black border. It's a precedent set.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, you gave us Sharknado.
It fits right
If that's not too stupid for Magic, then squirrels they're an actual animal.
Shark Typhoon is the name of that card.
Anyway, that's all we got for this week. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If not, I guess we won't see you next week. I don't know.
You should come back next week and see if you can not learn something again.
Oh, yeah, maybe. And tell all your friends you didn't learn anything and where you didn't learn it from, and bring them with you.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys later. Thanks.